Hello and welcome to On the Sofa with Simi, the brains behind Bellissimi Beauty. This is a safe space where I'll be sharing and discussing all things related to marriage, motherhood, makeup, and everything in between for women in their 20s, 30s, and 40s. So, if you don't already know me, I'm your host Simi. I have over 10 years of experience in the beauty industry, specifically in makeup, aesthetics, and microblading. In those 10 years, I've gone from traveling the world doing makeup and basically living the dream to almost giving up during the pandemic to then becoming a wife and a mum in my early 30s. I'm here to share all my knowledge, tips and tricks that I've learned along the way, just like the best friend you never knew you needed. So grab a cuppa, get cozy, and let's sit on this sofa and have a chat. And with that, let's get right into this week's episode. So today I'm talking about a subject that I really didn't think I'd ever be talking about. This wasn't what I had planned for this week's episode, but I have had a lot of you asking me about what's happened, how it happened, why it happened. So I thought it would be my duty to kind of give you a bit of insight into what happened as far as I'm aware. Let me just preface that obviously I wasn't there. I don't know the ins and outs or the facts that happened. I do believe at the time of recording this episode, there was a criminal case. I do believe the practitioner involved had been arrested but then released. So again, all I'm trying to do is cut through the noise of what the media is trying to tell you about what happened and give you not much of an insider, let's say, but from an aesthetics practitioner point of view as to what's actually a load of crap that they're trying to sell you and what actually potentially may or may not have happened. So today is going to be a bit of a heavy topic, as you can imagine. The most important thing I want to touch on is the fact that a young woman lost her life, a 34-year-old woman, and she leaves behind 5 children, I believe, 5 young girls. And that in itself is absolutely tragic. And if that doesn't scream for regulation in the aesthetic industry, I don't know what will. Hopefully, the only good bit of news to come from this would be that the regulations kind of get sped up and something's brought into play, because the industry just cannot continue this way. And as a non-medic, I say that in quotation marks, and I will get into what that means a bit later on. But as a non-medic, I am 101% here for the regulations, because there are too many cowboys out there. I am regulated in as far as the microblading side goes, and I did mention this a bit in my previous video about microblading being a tattooing procedure, therefore needing its own set of regulations. And obviously with those regulations, I follow that with my aesthetics practices anyway. But say you only did aesthetics, you don't need any sort of regulation. And I'm not saying that that's the cause of what happened and that is why this lady lost her life. But I do believe it contributed to it. And I'm going to get into that a little bit later on. So the lady who passed away had something called a BBL, and a BBL is a Brazilian butt lift. Normally, this is a procedure done by a surgeon in a hospital in a surgical environment. So by that, I'm talking nurses, anesthesists. The lady would have been or should have been under general anesthetic. She would have had a surgeon performing this treatment. It's that kind of a treatment. It's not like getting your lips done. It's a very invasive and very risky procedure. Put it this way, as far as I'm aware, the UK don't offer this as a cosmetic surgery, okay? A lot of people go to Turkey, let's say, for their BBL surgery. You see the influencers, you see models. I've personally worked with a few models who've had BBLs done. I've seen the amazing side where they look fantastic. I've also seen one of the models who her incision marks were literally leaking. She couldn't sit down and it was awful. And I'm not saying that's because she had it done in Turkey, let's say. I'm just talking about the procedure itself and how invasive it is and also how dangerous it is. So the fact that the UK doesn't offer this as a surgery, why and how is it okay to perform a version of it in a clinical setting in a salon, let's say? The best analogy, and I say best, but it's also terrible, so I'm not trying to, simplify it too much and take away the risks. But let's say you compare a BBL surgery and a BBL treatment. Surgery, i.e., done by a surgeon, not a doctor. And again, I'll get to that later. Not a doctor, but a surgeon in a surgical situation, compared to having a BBL by a doctor. It could be a doctor, it could be me, it could be this guy who has obviously been arrested for doing the procedure. Because, say, a doctor, you could have a pediatrician. Just because he's a doctor doesn't mean he's then qualified to inject fillers into lips, into your buttocks, into cheeks, whatever. But the doctor name is what's kind of come into contention here, like because this practitioner was a non-medic, let's say. So the best way I can describe it is you're going to get a cup of coffee, okay? You've got your fancy Starbucks, your Costa, all the beans, whatever they do with their frothers and their machines, or you have your instant coffee. Yeah, it does the same thing, kind of, gives you the same effect, gives you a little wake-up call, but you've got a much kind of more in-depth experience and procedure as opposed to stick the kettle on, pop a bit of your coffee in and off you go. So very, very basic, but that's the best analogy I could personally think of to compare a BBL surgery with a BBL treatment. So that brings me to why this whole medic and non-medic argument has come into play. So the practitioner who has been arrested, and I believe he's been released since, he's a non-medic. As far as I'm aware, I have heard of him in the industry. He does really well for himself. He's done very well for himself. But a lot of people have started bringing into the fact of his looks. Why that's relevant or why that's even been mentioned, it's really, really beyond the point, and it's nasty and it's unfair because that doesn't correlate to his experience or his qualifications. So he's a non-medic. And I said earlier about a pediatrician, let's say. And because that doctor, yeah, he may be a wizard with children, but does that mean he's better qualified to understand facial anatomy for injecting Botox or for lip fillers? So just because somebody's a doctor, it doesn't necessarily mean they're better. However, I do know from experience, because I have had doctors and nurses work with me in my past salon up in Yarm, that they have their own set of regulations. So because they are a member of the medical board, I think GMC or whatever it's called, they have their own stipulations and things they have to do to keep that PIN number. So yeah, obviously they have their own regulation. And this is the most important thing, regulation, and why we need it in this industry. So I am regulated due to the fact of the microblading, because it becomes a tattooing procedure, and then the council and local authorities have their own rules and regulations for that. But just because I'm regulated, does that mean I should be performing that kind of a treatment? And that also, when I say regulated, I also mean doctors. So I've worked with doctors and nurses in the past. So just because they have a GMC number or a PIN number, or because they are a doctor, they could be a pediatrician, they could be a bone doctor, let's say, does that mean they're more qualified to perform lip fillers and Botox than I am? Because I do have X, Y, and Z amount of experience. Anyway, this is where the medic and non-medic debate comes into, because people are saying, and this is where a lot of the speculation and the media noises come in, oh, it's because he was a non-medic that she died. We don't know the ins and outs of why she died. We don't know if it was a direct consequence of the procedure, or if she may have had some underlying conditions, or she had some kind of reaction to the product used, blah, blah, blah. Again, all speculation, and I cannot comment on the ins and outs of it yet. And this is all the knowledge that I've got so far at the time of recording this episode. But even other non-medics I've spoke to have said openly, and they will scream this from the top of the roofs, they wouldn't even offer this. So this isn't about non-medics v medics. There shouldn't have been even a medic involved, let's say. Your GP shouldn't be performing this. You shouldn't be able to go to an in-house clinic and be out in a day. This is a surgical procedure, and I think a surgeon should have performed this. And I'm not talking about a brain surgeon, but, a plastic surgery surgeon. But the fact that the UK doesn't even offer this, and this is actually one of the deadliest cosmetic procedures out there with a mortality rate of 1 in 3,000, that doesn't sound like a lot, but when you put it in perspective of the world, it's a very, very high number. So the fact that, like I said, the UK doesn't even offer this as a cosmetic procedure, why are people, whether they're doctors or not doctors, or medics or non-medics, why are they allowed to offer this as a treatment? Like, who allowed that? So the bigger picture is, first of all, looking at the trainers, why did the trainers think this was a good idea? And then second of all, the insurance companies, What insurance company thought it was a good idea to insure a medic or non-medic to perform this as an in-house treatment, perhaps where you don't need to stay overnight or you don't need any monitoring, blah, blah, blah. Why they thought that was okay to then allow it. Because this practitioner who's been arrested, if he followed all the rules, if he followed what his insurance provider said about maybe patch tests or consent forms, consultation, if he ticked all those boxes, it's not his fault. So is it the insurance provider's fault for even allowing somebody to be able to perform this in an in-house kind of setting? And then from that, you've got people jumping on the getting surgery and treatment in Turkey compared to the UK and how it's 10 times worse and there's more risks. And from personal experience, I'll hold my hands up and say I've had plastic surgery here in the UK and I've had plastic surgery over in Turkey. The one in the UK was horrendous to the point where I can't name the company name, but I ended up having to sue them. Well, we ended up settling because they butchered me. And then my experience in Turkey was so much better. The one thing I struggled with was the communication side during the aftercare, so with the nurses. But in terms of my consultant, the anesthesiast, the doctors, the hygiene, the cleanliness, I have absolutely no issues and I would go back again. If anyone would like to know a bit more about that, please slide in my DMs and I'll be open and honest about what I've had and why I had it done. Because a lot of it comes down to your psychology. A lot of the reasons why I had a tummy tuck, let's say, and that was in Turkey, or then a breast lift or reduction, and that was here in the UK, it was a lot to do with my confidence and how I felt and how I wanted to perceive myself and then how I thought others perceived me. And a lot of it came from weight gain and weight loss and blah, blah, blah. And these were, the last time I had the treatment was, I think, 2019. Sorry, the last time I had a plastic surgery procedure was 2019. So we're nearly 5 years on from that, and I'm so much more confident in my skin. And that's the kind of message I want to put across now, that it's not about these procedures, and that can come from makeup even. It can come from your eyebrows microbladed. It can come from plastic surgery. It's about how you feel inside and about inner beauty. And again, I could digress and talk about this all day. But the point is, a young woman lost her life because of it, because she felt a certain way, perhaps, again, speculation, I don't know. But all this pressure we're getting from social media to now look like a Kardashian, why? What is the point of that? And as consumers and as educators, let's say, as I am in this industry, don't I have a duty to tell you the truth? To be like, there are these risks involved. I mean, the fact that the UK doesn't offer it and you're going down the road to so-and-so who's offering it for 500 quid, let's say, again, whether they're medic or non-medic, that's not my point. But there's a reason why these certain procedures are banned on a surgical level over here, never mind on a kind of in one day, one stop kind of in and out job. It just should never have been allowed. And this argument goes a lot higher than this practitioner who was arrested. So I have a duty to kind of tell you, A, what the risks are involved, but you also have a duty as someone maybe looking to get these treatments, whether it is lip filler, whether it is something like a BBL treatment. Look at the risks involved. And it's not just necessarily about the medic v non-medic argument. It's about whether, if something's been banned, why would you want to get that done? And maybe look back at the psychology of it and maybe have a look back and take a step back and think, why do you need this? Is it a need or is it a want? And there may be some sort of psychological, like I said, I've said that word a few times, psychological elements to it. This isn't a quick fix. This isn't a kind of, you could get your lips done, you get them resolved, fine, okay? Not, I'm not saying it's a quick fix, but getting something as invasive as a treatment like a BBL, and I believe they have to insert litres of filler into your bum to get that shape. It's just not, it just doesn't sound good. It doesn't sound good to me on paper. It doesn't look good to me. There are a lot of moving parts that I think need to be considered. So if you are considering it, please really research into it, and hopefully you understand a bit more about what the risks are that are involved. And if you are a practitioner, by all means, please share this episode with your clients to try and educate them a bit more, because the media is turning this into a bit of a shit show that it doesn't need to be. The bottom line is a woman lost her life. And whether that was in Turkey, whether that was done by a doctor, whether that was done by a non-medic or a medic here in the UK, that's not the point. She lost her life, and we really need to bring it back to that and stop jumping on the bandwagon, trying to argue and cut people down, whether the medics or non-medics, or what they look like, for example, with this practitioner who's been arrested. So the bottom line is, beauty is not about looking good, right? Okay. I know I've said that a million times and I can practice what I preach, because I'm sat here saying I have had these surgeries done. But the point is now it's about feeling good and how we can try and feel good in our own skin and the journey we need to make to get there. Like, why would you want to risk your life to fit into what society is telling you? Because 20 years ago, Kate Moss was the it girl, no shape, no curves. Now Kim Kardashian's the it girl, shapes everywhere, curves everywhere. 20 years' time, what's it going to be then? And then are you going to start cutting your body up to fit into that ideal? I did it and I regret it. That's the God's honest truth. But I did it because I thought maybe I'd get a boyfriend, maybe so and so would fancy me, maybe I'd fit into what people wanted or thought was beautiful, and I didn't realize that I was always beautiful. I just had a few extra pounds on me here and there, but it took me this journey to now to be able to feel that way. So the most important thing is yes, Simi, fine, yeah, love yourself, blah blah blah. But if you are considering any of these treatments, whatever they may be, please look into your practitioner. It doesn't matter if they're medic or non-medic, but please look into them. Look at their insurance, look at their qualifications, and make a real informed choice. And do not be afraid to ask questions. You should never, never, ever be afraid to ask questions. And if you are, run a mile away from that practitioner. And also, just slide into my DMs, ask me, and if I can help, I will in any way I can. So thank you anyway for your time. It was a bit of a short and sweet, well, I wouldn't say sweet, a kind of short whistle stop tour as to what I believe's happened and maybe why it happened. And I will keep you all updated if I can when I hear more of to what's going on. But I do believe, like I said, it's a criminal case, so things won't be opened or shared very lightly, I think, and anytime soon. But always ask questions, and if you can, just love yourself more, please. Don't think this is the answer. I know it was never the answer. Anyway, I'm going on and on, but let's spread awareness. Let's start a conversation, and just let's make sure you as a consumer make an informed choice. If you're a practitioner listening, you're giving your clients the correct knowledge and information to allow them to make an informed choice, because that 300, 500, 600, 1,000 pounds is not worth somebody's life. It never was, and it never should be. So as always, thank you so much for joining me on my sofa. I know it was a heavy one again, but if you have any questions, you know where I am. And as always, please stay safe, stay informed, stay beautiful, because you already are. And I will see you on my sofa in the next one. So thank you for listening and take care. Bye.